Hello and welcome to ChooseFI. Today on the show, we have a really fun episode. We have Kristen Knapp, who is the admin of our St. Louis local group and just started a really cool new thing called 5 Friends Travel. And this is an opportunity for those of us who love travel, which I think is really a pretty common theme in the FI community, to get together and go on amazing trips internationally all around the world and spend that time with 5 friends. And I think it's something that upon hearing about it, it was so glaringly obvious that this is something that should have existed, but it never did. Nobody ever had the idea until Kristen came along and made it happen. And I think that's the entire encapsulation of her story is she made it happen. She went from growing up in poverty to getting to a $0 net worth at 35 to going part-time right around age 50. And has gone to countless number of FI events over the last 7 years since she's joined the FI community. And she's someone who just takes action and makes it happen. I think her story is incredibly inspiring. I think you're going to love this one. And with that, welcome to ChooseFI. Kristen, it is so great to have you here. It's wonderful to see you.
I am thrilled to be here, Brad. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
Yeah, you bet. So we have gotten to know each other a little bit at a bunch of economies now. I remember calling you out from the stage at a live recording.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's so great. It's always nice to see your smiling face in the crowd. So that helped center me a little bit, which is cool.
We've also seen each other at a few Camp FI events as well.
Oh, that's right. I'm so used to thinking about the economy at this point. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's at the end of the day, we're here to talk about, well, of course, your story and your fascinating story, but you are a community builder. And I think that's what's so cool about what you're up to. And you're one of our admins of the St. Louis group, which is awesome. And I love following the posts on Facebook and now hopefully in our new local app on ChooseFI.com. And you just started something recently called 5 Friends Travel. And this is just really great. I think one of the neatest parts about the FI community that I've experienced over the last 8 years is seeing these events pop up. And at first they were the Camp FIs. And then we, of course, there was Chautauqua was always going along, but we see an economy and that's the biggest get together in the world. And Alan and Katie Donegan and I have done an extraordinary event and we're hopefully going to do more. And there's just all these things popping up. We had Ryan Brennan on recently with the FI Service Corps. And that was a small group getting together and really hanging out, but then doing some volunteer work. And I actually see 5 Friends Travel as like, okay, it's very similar to that in the regard of like, there's magic, as you told me. There's this FI magic when people get together. And I'd love to hear you just talk about the community and what it's meant to you, because obviously it's meant enough that you've started up this really cool thing.
Yeah. So the FI magic I refer to is just whenever you get 5 people together, it doesn't matter if you've ever met or not. It doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing. Everybody always gets along incredibly. You feel within a matter of a very short period of time that you've made all these new best friends. And I have never experienced that anywhere in my life. It's magic. I don't know how else to explain it. I've seen this over and over with people. I had a chance to do introductions at a Camp FI last year. And as we were going around the room and I was talking to people and asking them, why'd you come and questions, things like that. And several people pointed out, they're like, oh my gosh, I already feel like these people are already my best friends and we haven't even talked about money, And you find that if you have that parallel, because you're part of this community, you just naturally have all these other things in common. And that's what I think is just so cool, because I've never experienced that in any other community in my life. To be fair, I don't really feel like I've ever had a community ever before in my life. I never really felt like I fit in anywhere in my life. So this has just brought me such joy. I only went to my first in-person event in 2022. I found you guys, the ChooseFI podcast, probably in 2018, 2019.
Okay.
And then I started reading the books and going down all the rabbit holes. But it was 2022 before I went to my first event, which was at Camp FI Rocky Mountain. And that weekend, it's so funny because I had such FOMO. Like, I didn't want to go to bed at night because I didn't want to miss any good conversations. I was listening a lot, but I was also talking a lot. I lost my voice. I've learned since to pace myself, but it's such an amazing thing. And obviously I'm kind of addicted now because I think I'm on my 7th Camp FI and 3rd economy. And and I run my local group. I mean, that came out of going to my first event, coming home, and then thinking, oh my gosh, how long is it going to be before I can hang out with these people again? Do I have to wait till next year? And then I saw that there was a local group that already existed, but it had kind of died. I think the person that ran it had moved away, and then there was COVID and some other things like that. So, people always say, oh, well, my group isn't very active. And I'm like, well, make it so, right? Just do
Yes.
it. So I just took the thing over and started being consistent with it. And, in the beginning, we had 6, 8 people, and now we have 40 people regularly once or twice a month.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think it's interesting because at my most recent Camp FI, which is Camp FI Mid-Atlantic over Memorial Day, Chantel from our Washington, D.C. group, who partially runs some of the events, especially the book club, which is actually a really neat thing. She did a presentation on basically establishing and maintaining friendships and really, certainly in the FI community. And part of this that came out of it was with these local groups, right? And it's like, it's be the change you want to see in the world, right? It's easy to say, like, oh, my local group's not that active. But to your point, stand up and do something about it, right?
Exactly.
Like, these
Quit
are not
talking
like,
about it. Just do it.
right, just do it. And I think that's kind of been one of the really great things about the local groups, but maybe to its detriment in some cases is which was basically just me and Jonathan. I mean, this is not some large organization, ChooseFI. It's just, at this point, it's just me and Jonathan. But we basically made them these really autonomous, decentralized groups where we don't have any kind of heavy hand on any of them. And each local group has its own flavor. But yeah, of course, in some instances, they do go dark, and that happened a lot over COVID, but it's just so neat to see a group like St. Louis. And like I told you, I get the updates and I love seeing it. That's remarkable to have 30 or 40 people show up a couple times a month.
Yeah. It makes my heart so happy because, again, I was just really missing that when I came back home. And I'm like, what can I do about that? Right. So
Yeah.
this is the result.
So there probably are people listening who are saying, okay, yeah, my local group isn't that active. What can I do? But there are also probably a bunch of people, many, many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people listening who are saying, like, okay, I do have a local group, but maybe our meetups are a little stale. Maybe it's just like we get together at a brewery and it's not really the best case scenario. So you have literally resurrected a local group. What tips do you have for people out there, not just local admins, but just everybody who wants to see that change in their own community? Anything come to mind? Any particular type of events that you found are really successful
Yeah.
in St. Louis?
Well, first thing is to be consistent. Like pick a day. Like we do the first Thursday of every month. So people know that's coming. We started with just the brewery thing as we were getting to know each other. And then came the communications from you guys and Diana Miriam talking about the case studies and how we wanted to do more of that. So someone sent me the template and some people volunteered in my group and we started that. Everybody loved it. So then we just kind of was doing that once a month. But then people were like, oh, we kind of missed the brewery hangs, because the case study is a little bit more formal and the brewery hangs a little bit more casual. So now we do 2 a month. We do our case study first Thursday of every month. And then on a random whatever day, go to whatever random brewery. And that's kind of a smaller group, more the people who, some of the regulars that know each
Sure.
other, just going to do the friendly stuff. But for our case studies, we regularly have about 40 for that one and maybe 10 to 20 for the brewery meetups. So consistency is key. Also, I tend to over communicate, which is probably a good thing because people forget.
Yeah, they
So,
do.
I send it out, if you're an admin, I send out the event, but I also make sure to pin it to the top of the page, send out invites, like invite the whole group. There's an option to do that. And then like a week before, I post on the main page a reminder about the event. And then I do it again the day before so people don't forget.
I like that. Yeah, it's really important. It really is exceedingly important. And yeah, I've seen, and that was not to demean the brewery get-togethers because I love them. I think they're fun, and you never know who you're going to talk to, of course. But yeah, my brother in Appleton, Wisconsin I think he's run a hike or two, which works. I know I mentioned book club. I've seen a bunch of local groups have real success with a monthly book club.
We're planning to go to a St. Louis Cardinals game right now. So we're going to do that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be fun. That's really cool. So yeah, I mean, that's the neat thing is every group has its own local flavor, but yeah, that's really, really cool. I love it. And yeah, one thing you said earlier when you're talking about the FI magic, right? So quote, we haven't even talked about money yet, right?
Yep.
And the funny thing is, at least I find at a lot of these meetups, there's so little talk about money. And it's not to say it doesn't happen because it does, but you could go an entire weekend Camp FI without talking about money very, very easily.
Yeah. But if you have questions, there are plenty of people that can answer those things for you.
And would love to answer them.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I wonder, so like, what do you attribute that magic to? I think that's the big question.
That's an excellent question, Brad. I don't know. I think if I knew how to explain it, I wouldn't call it magic because it's magic.
Touche,
right?
touche. Oh, man. Well, I think you might have hit on it earlier, which is just many of us, I don't want to paint a broad brush, or exceedingly broad brush, but most of us have felt like we haven't had our own community. And there is something really special about this is the tie that binds. It's not that we sit there and talk about FI, like I said, necessarily about money, but it's the tie that binds of really interesting people.
Yeah.
People who are living life in a very intentional and overt way, who are
A very
experimenting.
unique way, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not the norm. There's not that many. We're not normies.
We're not.
Many
And
of
that's
us.
great.
So when we get together, it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. Okay. So, right. That's amazing. You've been to 7 Camp FIs, 3 economies, and now.
Since 2022. I know it's crazy. I just signed up for Camp FI Rocky Mountain Week 1.5. So this will be my 3rd this year. I have a problem.
Hey, could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, listen, we're going to get into FI Friends travel, and I actually want to talk about the intersection with that Camp FI Rocky Mountain that's coming up in 2025. But let's just take a quick step back. I want to talk about you. I want to hear your story because, of course, we've met a bunch of times, and that's what's neat about, again, events. Sometimes you dive deep on everybody's story, and sometimes you just talk about what's interesting that day. And I feel like I know you, but I'm curious about the origin story. So let's start from the beginning, wherever you deem that.
So I was born in Lexington, Kentucky. I was actually adopted. And this is a whole other conversation that we won't get into today, but I was placed for adoption and in recent years have found my entire biological family.
Oh,
and
wow.
It has been wild. A lot of it was because of a DNA kit. It was nuts.
Okay.
My brother has actually come on some of these FI events. My new brother that I just met in 2019.
Your biological brother.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So I actually did another podcast episode where I discussed this whole story in depth because it's wild with Doc G. I don't know if you want to link to that in the show notes.
I would love to. I'd love to. Send me the link and we'll put it in there.
I won't dive into that here, but just, yeah. So that course sort of starts things. So given up at birth, placed for adoption, but placed into poverty, which people can't wrap their head around that now. But in the 70s, I guess it was more common. I don't think babies cost a lot of money back then. I don't know that it cost anything because my family didn't have money. So I don't know what happened. Okay. But anyway, plenty of love. I was very loved, but there was a lot of financial trauma. Some other ones too, but that was for this conversation. Yeah. We'll stick with that. I can remember just a lot of arguing about money. I can remember creditors calling my mom and making her cry, because there wasn't caller ID, back then.
Sure.
So I always knew, this is not going to be my life. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of this situation. No one in my family had ever gone to college, but as far as I knew, I didn't know about the trades or anything. I probably would have explored that knowing then what I know now. But all I knew at that time was if I want to get a good job and make decent money and not have to struggle and have health insurance, because we didn't have health insurance growing up, that was a huge problem. I need to go to college. So the only person in my bubble of life that wasn't poor was the man that owned the farm that we lived on. So I grew up on a farm. No, we did not own it. People hear that and like, oh, she's rich. Oh, no. No, we lived there for free in exchange for my dad taking care of the property. So that's kind of how that worked. Okay. So never had to pay any rent or anything like that. It was just enough money to basically keep the lights on and feed us. And he did some heating and air conditioning work on the side, but it was always a struggle. But this man that owned the farm was a doctor. So I was like, I'm going to be a doctor because doctors are rich. Not that I wanted to be rich. I just didn't want to be poor, right? Yeah. This guy had a nice vehicle that didn't break down all the time like ours and seemed like he had a nice life and owned his own home. And I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. So I started out pre-med and then I got midway through college and I'm like, what am I doing? I didn't want to be a doctor, Brad. I don't know what I was thinking. Nothing against doctors, but I just didn't have that real interest. So I went and met with a career counselor midway through my sophomore year. You'll love this. She said to me, well, what gets you excited? And my answer made her give me a really funny look. I told her tornadoes. That's kind of a weird one, but it's true. Oh, and she's like, Okay. So then she opens this big giant book because, there was no internet then to meteorology programs. And she found the broadcast meteorology department at Mississippi State University. So it was like this big aha moment, big light bulb moment for me because I'd always been fascinated with weather. When you grow up, you think doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse. You don't think I'm going to be the TV weather person. Like that just never occurred to me in a million years. But once she presented that, I was like, yeah. And they had this really great opportunity that because it was another SEC school that I couldn't get this program at the University of Kentucky where I was. So I was able to pay in-state tuition down at Mississippi State.
That is a really cool hack in and of itself. I've heard about those reciprocity programs where, they're often colleges have these connections with other colleges. Yeah, whether in this case it's SEC, sometimes it's just neighboring states, however it may be. But that's a question to look into, which is if my university does not have the program that I'm looking for, there might be reciprocal benefits where you can get in-state tuition at another college that does have that major or program. So that's a cool hack that I don't think has ever come up in 700 plus episodes, but that's something that I was loosely aware of. But it's neat to hear somebody who's actually done it.
Yeah. So I think I thought in the back of my head that we had so little money that I was going to get like a full ride from the government. And that is not what happened. I did get Pell Grants. I mean, I got Pell Grants, but it certainly didn't cover everything. So I ended up having to take out a lot of student loans. And I look back and I wish there was anybody, again, no one in my family had ever gone to college, but I don't know, somewhere along the line who was like, Kristen, do not take out these loans. Find another way, apply for scholarships. I was smart. I probably could have gotten scholarships. I just didn't really have any sort of mentor. I didn't know what I was doing. So I graduated with student loan debt and, I'm in my early 20s. By the way, TV news people, they really don't make as much money as a lot of people think they do. Let's just put that out there right now. And especially in these days, because there's not many eyeballs watching TV news anymore. I mean, you've got, first it was the internet and then there's 8 million streaming channels and none of us sit around wait for the 5 o'clock news. We get our weather on our phone when we want it, right? So TV makes money by charging for the number of eyeballs watching our commercials. And that just number has come way, way, way down. So in my first job, I think I was making like, I don't know, $29,000 a year or something like that. And, I had student loans, I had a car payment. I was living in an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment by myself because I didn't know house hacking was a thing. Oh my God, I wish you guys existed back then. Things would have been so different. So I was just really just trying to keep my head above water through my 20s. By the time I paid just those basic things every month, I didn't have enough money left for gas or groceries, So credit card debt happened and I just spent, I think I hit zero, Brad. I hit not broke.
Yeah.
Or just broke, just even at age 35. That's how long it took me to just climb out from all of that.
Okay. So $0 net worth.
Yeah.
Which is a huge accomplishment, right? Like, I think it's funny because Jonathan used to use that phrasing, I'm back to broke.
Back to broke.
And it's something about it always struck me as a little bit off in terms of messaging, but I have grown to care for it because it's important that everyone, no matter where they're starting, understands success is how you see it in your life and how it shows up in your life. And in your case, if you're, I'm making this up, but it's probably not too far off, tens of thousands of dollars in student loan and credit card, and you get to finally a $0 net worth, that's a massive success.
Getting out from underneath credit card debt and student loan debt and all that stuff, it's a lot, And the way I did that, this is kind of sort of my entry into all of this, is Dave Ramsey came on my newscast when he first released his Total Money Makeover book in the early 2000s.
Okay.
This is before he got super famous, right? And I read that book and you learn about what's the snowball?
Oh yeah, the debt snowball.
Yeah, the debt snowball. Yeah. So I started doing that, right? But I'd always been frugal, not because I'm wired. I think a lot of people in the community are wired frugally. Brad, like, do you feel like you're wired frugally?
I do, genuinely.
Okay, so I don't know that I was wired that way, but I became frugal out of necessity.
Okay.
So I had been doing that for so long, and then that book kind of gave me some direction to help get out from under this debt. I got there in my mid-30s, and then it was probably, 2018. I was talking to a good friend of mine. I think you know him too, Eric Cooper.
Of
A lot of
course.
people know him as Mr. 72T. He's been doing a lot
Yeah,
of
he's become
talking about
famous for
it.
that. And
Yeah,
I met up with
exactly.
him in Louisville recently.
Yeah, okay. So I met him in Louisville like in 2001. So we've been friends for a very long time and we talk deeply about money and everything else. And I don't remember the conversation we were having, but he goes, have you heard of FIRE? And I'm like, huh? I think he just sort of assumed I knew what it was. And he explained it to me and he was like, I emailed this guy, Mr. Money Mustache, and I had him look at my numbers and he says like, I'm good to go. And I was like, who are all these people? What are you talking about? And he gave me a
Yeah.
book to read. I don't remember what the book was. It isn't one of the more common ones, but I started reading it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it connected so deep immediately. I'm like, I'm already being frugal. This is kind of what I'm aiming for. I just didn't know the little things like index funds and you don't need a guy to invest your money and the 25 times or 4% rule, if you will. And I didn't know all those little things. So I needed that structure. And this provided that for me. And that's when I found you guys and the simple path to wealth and started going down all the different rabbit holes. And that's kind of how I came to find this community.
I love that. Yeah. So it connected so deeply. That's a cool phrase. And obviously, you said you're frugal out of necessity, but nevertheless, you had been frugal for, it sounds like,
Ever?
yeah, forever, going back to childhood, but certainly for the 13 years of your adult life post graduation until you got to $0 net worth. But do you have any sense of like what it was that connected so deeply? Was it just simply like this is how you were living and it finally put, like you said, a structure or language to what you've been doing?
100%. It was kind of what I was already doing. I just needed that structure and to know that others were doing it and being given those tips that were so important that I just didn't know. It's like you do better when you know better. I just didn't know.
Yes.
And then once I started finding all that information, it's like, oh my gosh. And I think a lot of us say it. I'm like, man, I wish I would have found this sooner.
Yeah, I mean, of course, of course. But it's funny because that's exactly how I would describe my FI journey also in terms of like the actual formal, like I understand FI because like you said, I am naturally frugal as well. And I did save money from when I was just starting out, but I had no reason to do it. There was no structure, there was no purpose. And to me, the two lightning bolt moments for me very clearly were finding Pete, Mr. Money Mustache's article, The Shockingly Simple Math Behind Early Retirement, which I know so many people in our community know. And I mean, that came out, 12 years ago at this point? And it finally said, okay, look, it's your annual expenses times 25, basically. Like that's,
Right.
I mean, we all know it now, but that was revelatory back
Yes.
then. It was massive, like absolutely massive. And then for me, J.L. Collins' Simple Path to Wealth.
Oh, yeah, totally. Totally. He is amazing.
He really is. What else? Anything else? So for me, those were my two lightning bolts. It sounds like those were two similar ones for you. Anything else jump out to you as especially like that type of lightning bolt? I know you found ChooseFI early, and I'm not fishing for compliments
Well, no,
for us.
okay, but hold on now. Let's give yourself a little bit of credit because it really was early on for me. Once I found out this concept existed, I didn't really go read Mr. Money Mustache.
Okay.
I love you, Mr. Money Mustache, but that's not where I went. I went to the ChooseFI podcast and the Simple Path to Wealth. Those were my two go-tos that taught me the overwhelming majority of everything I know.
That's very cool. It's funny because again, I kind of grew up in my FI journey with Pete, with Mr. Money Mustache. And it is interesting and very gratifying when I go to these Camp FIs to see basically Stephen asks everybody, where did you find FI? And it's really ChooseFI and Mr. Money Mustache. And it's pretty incredible to be in that company, we'll say. And yeah, I mean, I think hopefully what we've done is basically make this something that seems attainable for people. And I think that's what you were alluding to, which is, hey, there are other people doing this. This is real. There's a language here. I can actually connect with these other people. And I think that's why these events are so, we don't run any of these events, but that's why these events are so popular. That's why, like you said, the FI magic, why it just resonates.
Works. I don't know why. It just works. And it's amazing. It brings my heart so much joy. I just can't even put it into words.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And it does just work. And it's funny because both the meetups just work, but also FI just works. And I think that's what's so cool about your journey is, yeah, it took you a decent bit of time. And like you said, of course, we can all lament about things that we've done. And I wish I knew this at 17 and my life would have been easy street at that point, but we didn't. And most of us don't. And that's fine. Like we can't beat ourselves up about the past. We just make changes that make our life better today, tomorrow, and going forward. Right. So,
Easier said than done, though. Sometimes
yeah.
it's,
Well,
you
tell me
just
about
get
it.
frustrated. Well, I try to mentor some of the young people around me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times they probably don't want to hear it. The things about watching their budgets and their 401ks and what to invest in. And because, like I said, I just wish there would have been somebody around when I was younger to give me some of this advice. And there just wasn't. So they can take it or leave it. But this is how I cope with the fact that
Yeah.
I didn't know. Like, let me give back.
Well, okay, let's talk about that. I love that. So the young people around you. So, you did kind of allude to this. You are a television meteorologist in
Yeah.
St. Louis. So are you talking about like younger coworkers, family and
Yeah.
friends?
No, in the TV news business, all the old people, they're kind of rotating out. And
Okay.
have a lot of 20 somethings that I work with who are reporters and anchors and things like that. And I don't know, like, I don't feel this pressure to like be fancy because I'm on TV. I think a lot of people do.
Okay.
Maybe that's normal. I'm not normal. What can I say? But, they drive the fancy cars and they have the fancy shoes and the fancy bags and live in the best part of town and all the things. And I just try to impress upon them that, you don't have to do that, and savings rate. And, a lot of them, they don't know what they're invested in and they're not putting in enough to get the match. And I just try to convey some of this to the younger folks as much as I can. I definitely become known as that person at work if anybody has questions about their 401k or anything like that.
Huh. That is really cool. So for everybody listening, you might not work in a television station, but undoubtedly you have younger coworkers. It doesn't matter where you work. But Kristen, like, how did you do that? How did you become that person? That doesn't happen overnight. How did you first broach this with, if you remember, with the first person? Like, did you just start talking about it? Is it just interest led? Did you
I'm
actually
not
try to help people?
sure. Honestly, I'm a big mouth. They don't ask. And, sometimes I get it. It's like, I know you didn't ask me, but, and I'm probably sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, but I don't care. I just want to get the information out there.
Yeah.
It's important to me to get it out there. Maybe if there's one person that connects with it, then it makes a difference. And I probably annoy some people with it. And honestly, I don't know how it came up. Most recently, here's an example. We were sitting around, there was an event. I don't know if it was a birthday or what it was, but food had been brought in and we were all sitting around. And I think a lot of the girls were talking about their nails and they all have these perfect nails and they were talking about how expensive it is. And I was like, do you guys realize how much money you would save if you didn't get your nails done every week? I'm like, look at mine. My nails look fine. I do them myself. I just use
Nice.
clear polish.
That's really cool.
So things like that.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. It's right. So it's not like heavy handed or overt necessarily, but it comes up and,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit of heavy handedness, I'm sure, every now and
Yeah.
again. But have you had any success stories? Like, has anybody out of all the people, like, can you think of one or two people who are like, oh, wow, this actually works? And like, maybe they did up their 401k contributions or something like that.
Well, I don't know that they're ever going to feel like it works for a long time, right? Because when you're new, and you're just starting, it's going to be a really long time before you see the compound interest thing kind of take over, right? I think they appreciate it though. Certainly when I explain, index funds versus managed funds and what you're saving. And I might give them some examples about what this could look like 20 years from now, and math out things like that. But also I make it very clear too, like, you're not putting in enough to get the free match. That's free money. That's like you're throwing away free money, and try to get these things across to them. And I feel like 20 years from now, they'll be like, man, that was great. I'm so glad you told me that. But right now, some it's in one ear and out the other, and some make the changes, and we'll see what happens.
Maybe you'll get some thank yous 20 years from now
Maybe.
then. I like it. But yeah, that I feel like that's a really good way. It's all about strategy, right? Like that's one of the fun parts of this is like, not that we're here to like convert people or proselytize or anything like that, but like you said, you just want to help people. And it's hard because you can't really like walk around saying like, oh, I'm almost financially independent, and that doesn't work. But something like that 401k, I feel like that's a perfect example of like,
Yeah.
this is literally part of your salary, that match. And if you're not putting in
Exactly.
enough, you are just handing the company back money.
You're nuts. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Honestly, one of the other ways that it's come up more recently is when I moved to part-time. I moved to part-time last March 2024. And I don't know that people have actually said to me, how did you do that? But, when it comes up in conversation, I talk to them about some of this stuff. And just for context, how I did that is through being a part of this community and learning and knowing how the math works, let me step back. I had a really big birthday last year, and I'll just tell you, I turned 50 last year, and it is the age that my mother was when she received her cancer diagnosis that would take her life the following year.
Oh my
And
goodness.
something about hitting that age just really shook me to the core. I also lost a friend last year to colon cancer who was about my age. So I very much started thinking about, when you're younger, obviously we talk about how this is all about time. You can't buy back time. Time is your most valuable commodity. And we can say that all day long, but as we really start getting older, that just hits a lot closer to home. So I turned 50. There were some things I was doing during the week at work that I didn't really enjoy. I wanted to spend more time doing the things that I love and less of the things that I felt like I had to do. So I took a look at our numbers and I figured out we were so far past ChooseFI.
Okay.
Like we were so almost FI, right? So I realized that we didn't need to be saving as much as we were. We were maxing out everything. I would say I married my husband. So we basically brought our savings rate down to where we just get that free match, right? And then the other money basically allowed me to go part-time. So starting last March, technically right before my 50th birthday, I went to part-time. And most weeks, I work 2 days a week. That's assuming there's no tornadoes or anybody's sick or on vacation or anything like that. But in a quiet week, it's 2 days a week. And yeah, that's not common in my business. As a matter of fact, I'm the first person that had ever done that at my work. They did not know what to do with me. Like they were very confused. They weren't sure how that was going to work with benefits and any of the things. So they had to figure all of that out.
Wow. So, okay, that's amazing. How did you negotiate that then?
So I do the weekend evening weather on Saturday and Sunday nights. And the way that it works is you have like your weekday morning person, your weekday night person, your weekend, so everybody kind of has a role that they play. They didn't really need me for the stuff that I was doing the week. I was doing feature reporting, not hard news. Like I wasn't doing homicides or anything like that. I might be at the zoo introducing the new seal babies. I mean, it was cute stuff, but I just didn't want to do that. I just wanted to do weather. Plus I was having to write some things and shoot some things, and it just wasn't my jam. And I didn't want to work as much. Nice. So I was like, I went to them and basically said, look, you guys don't really need me for this stuff during the week. As a matter of fact, I probably create more of a problem for you than I solve because you have to find a photographer for me and an editor for me and a story idea for me because I'm limited because I can't do the hard news. And I was like, you really just need me for Saturday and Sunday. So what if I agree to do that? And when I'm in town, I will help out when you need me, because what they really need me for is to cover when we do have bad weather or when people are sick or on vacation.
Okay.
I'm like, as long as I'm in town, I will help still cover that. And that's really what you need me for. You don't need me for this other stuff. Plus, you're going to save 60% of my salary. So, and they love that. So that's what happened.
Wow. Okay. That's incredible. So yeah, you were on a 5-day, right? So now you're down to 2. So hence you're getting 40% of your old salary. But yeah, like you said, you are ChooseFI. So as I'm understanding, I'm just trying to catch up here. So you are ChooseFI, which for most people, and I don't want to assume anything, but most people means they are not actively putting additional savings into their net worth, but they are basically living at, hey, if my life costs $80,000, then I'm bringing in 80,000. So roughly average, that's generally the framework, but it sounds like you actually are, again, to get that match, right? So you are saving.
Yeah, we're putting in enough to get the match. And then the additional savings that we were putting in basically goes now into a Kristen pot to allow Kristen to be part-time because I didn't want to adjust my life down by 60% when I started working 60% less, right? Does that make sense?
It does.
So basically I get a little allowance now on top of my 40% paycheck of what I had before.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense. It's funny because the optimizer in me or the math person is like, money is all kind of fungible, which is a fancy way of saying like money is money is money. It doesn't matter where it comes from, but mental accounting is really important. And I think that's what you're doing there. And that passes the sleep well at night test.
Exactly.
And we can't discount that. That's really important. So how did you come up with this allowance thing as opposed to just saying like, hey, again, in my hypothetical, I'm making up numbers like, hey, we're bringing in 80,000, we spend 80,000, I'm just going to spend my normal bit. And it doesn't really matter where it's coming from or whether I have this allowance or not. It's the money's all there.
So the first thing I did is went to see how close we were to FI. And like, if we didn't put in another dollar, would we get to our number by the time that my husband wants to retire, which is 2028, by the way?
Okay.
And the answer was yes. So that was where I started. And then I'm like, okay, how much extra above and beyond, the getting the match level are we putting away every year? Would that be enough for me to maintain my lifestyle if I go to 2 days a week? Because the whole thing was, I'm not trying to become FI so then I can lead a less amazing life.
Sure.
Like, I want to live the same life part-time as I did before. I want to do just as much. Now, look, I'm not going to live a more extravagant life per se, but I just wanted to be able to keep my spending consistent and be able to do the same things I was doing before. So in order to do that, it was pretty equal by the time we brought that savings down as to how much additional I would need to continue to maintain my life the same way.
Okay.
So I don't do spreadsheets, Brad. I know I'm probably going to get my FI card revoked here. I'm one of the few.
No FI card. To everybody listening, there's no FI card. There's no rules.
All back of napkin, scratching it out. Just, figuring out, hey, that works. The mental gymnastics I had to work with my husband a little bit on. It was a little challenging for him to understand. He was like, well, we're going to be broke and where's the money going to come from? And I think it just took a while of him seeing that it worked every month. And now he doesn't even mention it anymore. Actually, there is one thing. He's like, well, what do I get? And I'm like, well, what do you want? I'm like, you don't want anything. You don't want to stop working, which if you wanted to, we could probably do that. He's like, I already feel like I'm part-time. He's a firefighter. So he goes to work for 48 hours and then he's home for 4 days. He's like, I already feel like I'm pretty much retired. I get 4 days off every week. And I'm like, well, you're a little frustrated that I'm getting to, he was saying, you get to have your cake and eat it too. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's the point. That's the point, right? That's why we do this. And he's like, well, what do I get? So I was like, okay, what do you want? He started thinking about it. He's like, I want a truck.
Okay.
So he got his truck and he loves that truck, Brad. And I haven't heard another word about it.
Sounds like a win. Sounds like a win all around. That's really cool. And yeah, I think like you said, it's about living a great life. Like you don't want to live a less wonderful life now.
Exactly.
And you're so close to FI. And it sounds like, you're about 3 years until your husband's done. And I imagine for you, it'll be a pretty similar date, if not before.
Exactly.
Nice.
We're going to see what happens. I've got a new boss coming in, I'm doing some more traveling. So that's one of the great benefits of this FI stuff, right? Is that we have these options. Doesn't it make you just sleep well at night? It's amazing. I struggled for so long, for so much of my life, stressing about money. And it's so nice to have options and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. And this is really like the flexing your FI muscle. I think this is, right? Doesn't it feel amazing? Like you've been on this journey of frugality and then FI for a very long time. And now you're finally flexing those muscles. It's got to feel remarkable.
It's amazing. Just knowing that no matter what happens with this new boss, it's fine. If they come in and they're like, we don't like this part-time thing. We want you to come back full-time. I can be like, nah. And that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. That's what's so cool about FI. There's so many ways that we can benefit from it. Like we talked about mini retirements. I just chatted with Jillian Johnsrud, and that's a way that people can take advantage of it. I know me, for the first time in my adult life, I haven't worked in a corporate job for 10 plus years now, but I think I'm finally flexing my FI muscles as well, for real, and been traveling more. I have been able to come up with a way where I can batch these podcast recordings and my newsletters a little bit, and I can just travel on a much more frequent basis. And it's really wonderful. So I think, Kristen, to me, one of the coolest things is like, there's just not one flavor of FI. And I find that so encouraging.
We all do it our own way, right? But that's the thing, is the flexibility that it provides and the options. And that's the other thing I really love about this community too, is it would have never occurred to me in a million years to go part-time because no one in my business ever did it. Like it just wasn't a thing. And somebody just kind of casually mentioned it to me one day, like, maybe you should think about going part-time first. And I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense. Well, I didn't ever think of that before, which that's one of the parts of this FI magic too, is that you're exposed to ideas that you're just not exposed to in the real world, if you will. And also, I think outside of this community, maybe even if you did think of it, you probably aren't going to do it, most likely, because you're scared, you don't know other people doing it. Something about being in this community and seeing all the people around you doing these amazing things and taking these risks and these chances and doing things and thinking outside of the box gives you the confidence to do that. Whereas if you didn't have anybody else around you doing these things, I think it's a lot less likely to happen.
Yeah, it's like an unknown unknown. And you said you most likely aren't going to do it, but you most likely can't do it, right? For most people.
That's true. That's true as well. Yeah.
Right? Like most people are living paycheck to paycheck, or at the very least,
Absolutely.
their lives are going to crumble within a couple months if they don't have money coming in. So
Good point.
you're in a position of power. That's what's so wonderful. And it's not like we jokingly call it FU money.
Oh, I call it that too.
And it like
it's
it has a
amazing.
nice ring to it, but it's not licensed to be a clown, like to be a jerk to people. It's
Right.
licensed to understand that you have power in your life that you didn't previously.
I had to make decisions, work decisions from a place of fear for so long. And to finally be in a place where I could make decisions, positive decisions for myself from a place of power, I can't even begin to describe, particularly coming from my background, the happiness and joy and peace that that brings me.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it all just helps us, again, that sleep well at night test. That's what I think about. And another thing you hit on is another enduring lesson from this podcast and the community is everything is negotiable, right? Especially when you have that position of power. Like, yeah, nobody's ever gone to 2 days a week in your job. Does that mean it's impossible? No. Does that mean you can't do it? No. It just means nobody's ever tried before. Nobody's ever thought to try, but you did.
Interestingly enough, about 3 months later, somebody else did because then they found out it was a thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, oh, I didn't know that was an option. Yeah.
Blazing a trail.
Yep.
Oh, I love it. So blazing a trail into a better life, into a life you want to live into. I think that's the perfect segue for what you're up to now, which is, like we talked about earlier, we mentioned in passing, 5 Friends Travel. This is something that I know you have a love of travel. You have a love of organizing amazing trips and bringing people together. And sounds like it's all kind of culminating and coalescing into this. I know you had your first successful trip, so I will get out of the way. I'd love to just tell us about it. Where did this idea come from? What's it all about? Just tell me more.
Okay. So I am obsessed with world travel. I don't know why. I certainly didn't get any growing up, right? But I just have this incredible desire to experience new things, different cultures, different architecture, history, things along those lines. So I love to travel. I love hanging out with people in the FI community. So why not combine those things, right? 2 birds, 1 stone. I mean, just double the fun, right?
Makes sense to me.
So if there was something that already existed like this, I would have gone on those trips. It just didn't exist. I really enjoy international travel. My husband enjoys it a little bit less. Well, a lot less. I can get him to do an international trip maybe like once every other year. Okay. So in the last few years, he's been saying, go with your friends, go with your friends. So I started going with my friends. So I'd already done a couple of really awesome, epic trips with small groups of friends in the last few years. And some of those friends happened to be 5 people. I did like 2 weeks in Egypt. I did 2 weeks in the Alps. And I always naturally fall into being the sort of group coordinator.
Okay.
It's just a role that it falls into my lap naturally. I think it's because, well, first of all, I love the planning aspect of it. I research everything to death. I am really into the details, just who I am. And a lot of people don't care for that bit. So I just sort of end up kind of taking over and being like, here's where we're going here and here's where we're going then. And I think people appreciate that. If they don't come on my trip, right? But this is sort of the role that I play. So yeah, I'd mentioned casually to a few, some of the leaders in our community. I'll mention Mark Troutman specifically. I think you know Mark of Mark's Money Mind. I'd mentioned it to him at Economy 2024.
Okay.
So a little more than a year ago. I said, I have this idea, I'd like to plan these epic trips, which I was already planning, amazing trips, but I'm like, maybe just do it on a larger scale, continue planning these epic trips and invite all my 5 friends along, right? He was like, that's awesome. Do it. I'll come, So I got a lot of positive response at Economy. I was asking people what they thought. They're like, yeah, it's great. It's great. And then a couple months later, I went to a Camp FI and I mentioned it there. And people were like, how do I get on your list?
Yeah.
Like, how do I find out about these trips? I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this, which was a huge leap of faith for me to do because I don't feel like I have an entrepreneurial bone in my body. Like I've always been a W-2 worker. I don't feel like I'm particularly creative. Like I like going into a system that already exists
Okay.
and you telling me what to do. So the idea that I would have to create this thing from scratch and figuring it out as I go is very, very scary to me. But again, nobody was doing it. It seemed to make all the sense in the world. I mean, a lot of 5 people have the extra time. A lot of them like to travel. We like hanging out together. So why not? And on top of that, for years, people have been saying to me like, oh, you should be a travel agent. First of all, the idea that I would have clients on the other side of the world calling me at 2:00 in the morning because a dinner reservation fell through, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Like, no, thanks. So I'm not a travel agent. I'm basically just a coordinator. I sort of just facilitate it and bring the group together. So I continue to plan epic trips just like I kind of always did. And now I'm just inviting all my friends, which happens to be the greater FI community.
Wow. Okay. I love this. So, like you said, you're not a travel agent.
Nope.
You're coordinating.
Right.
So I'm coming from Richmond, Virginia. So now I go to 5 Friends Travel. You have a trip coming up to X, Y, and Z place. Where's the next one?
Oh, you actually want to know what's the next trip
Yeah,
you can
just
come on?
in my hypothetical here, but we'll make it less hypothetical.
Okay, so my very next trip is I'm taking 17 people to Morocco for 2 weeks in October. But you're too late, Brad, because that one sold out a long time ago.
Oh, damn.
But I do have a waiting list going.
Okay, nice.
So I do take care of all the logistics.
Okay.
So like you do have to handle your international flights, but I think most people in this group are pretty capable.
Definitely.
But once you are on land, all the activities and, everything's kind of taken care of. So you don't have to worry about planning anything, right? That's my part. So I take that off your plate. So the next trips, let's talk. We've got a December 10th river cruise. If you've never done that before, I know many of us haven't.
Yeah,
We've done
seriously.
like ocean liners, but this is a river cruise. And it's to visit the European Christmas markets.
Ooh.
We're going to sail from Vienna to Nuremberg. So that seems really cool. Have you ever been to the Christmas markets in Europe?
I have not. I've heard great things, but have never made it.
Yeah, I haven't either. I'm really excited. To be clear, I don't plan trips that I've already gone on. Like,
Okay.
I'm not an expert in these places either. Like, I'm planning epic trips that I want to go on that I can get excited about. I don't see any value in going to the same place over and over. Like, there's a big world out there, right? So I guess the idea with these is just a really festive atmosphere, and they turn all these amazing European cities into just winter wonderlands. And there's crafts and drinks and food. You get in on the local Christmas traditions and things like that. So spots available. That one's booking now. April 2nd, we're doing another river cruise. This one's going to be round trip from Amsterdam during tulip time. Are you familiar with like the famous tulip
you bet.
stuff?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So that one's a week. We'll go through parts of Belgium and Holland. We're also adding in, I did not know. I don't know if you're a beer drinker. I'm not, but apparently Belgian beers are a really big deal. Do you know
They are. Today, I'm not a massive, I don't drink much beer, but yeah, Belgian beers are fantastic.
Okay. So apparently people are way into this. So we have some people who are going to be on the cruise who are also really into that. So they're helping with creating some beer type excursions just for us, for our group. While we're on the cruise, we'll go to some breweries and do some tastings and some things like that. So that's really fun. I've got 26 people signed up for that one already. It's next April.
Wow. Amazing.
I know. It's very exciting. So as long as there are spots on the ship, there's spots available, and there are spots on the ship. So that one's available. Let's see what's next. Oh, I am in the middle of finalizing everything right now for a really cool trip to Turkey.
Ooh.
Have you ever been to Turkey?
I have not. Well, I have been in the Istanbul airport, but I've never been to Turkey.
That airport is huge, right? Me too. I've only been in the airport. It's ginormous.
It is.
It's like a city.
Yes. Amazing.
So I'm actually launching this one to book starting tomorrow, which is super exciting.
Nice.
We're going to take 20 people. It will probably sell out because that has just been how it's been going so far. The ships don't usually sell out because it's a whole ship, right? But this small group land travel has been selling out. So we're going to go to Istanbul, which is super cool because it straddles Europe and Asia.
Yeah.
You're actually on 2 continents. Isn't that cool? So we're east meets west. So that's neat. We'll go to the Blue Mosque. We'll go to the Hagia Sophia. We're going to cruise on the Bosphorus. Then we're going to go to Cappadocia. Does that ring a bell? Do you know Cappadocia?
It does not, sadly.
I think if you saw pictures of it, you would recognize it because it's kind of Instagram famous. The landscape kind of looks, I'm going to say it looks like the moon. I haven't seen the moon, but they've got these crazy rock formations. They call them like fairy chimneys. And people have built over the centuries homes and churches into these things, these caves. And they do hot air balloon launches over the city every morning. It's probably become almost too Instagram famous, really. But It looks really, really cool. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, this area. So we're going to obviously check out all the caves, and we'll have a dinner in a person's home that lives in the area
Nice.
and do some really neat stuff. There's also an underground city there that we're going to go visit.
Wow.
It's fascinating stuff.
That sounds amazing.
And then the other thing we're going to do on the trip, which is kind of interesting, I'm really into ruins. I just think ancient history is really cool. Ephesus, if you've ever heard of Ephesus, I think it's mentioned a lot in the Bible.
Okay.
I don't know all my Bible history, but it's ancient. Cleopatra, Mark Antony walked on these same marble streets we're going to be walking on. It's like one of the best preserved ancient cities in the world. So those are the three main places that we're going to be visiting in Turkey. And again, all the logistics are handled. You just show up, right?
Wow.
You book your international airfare and you show up, and all the logistics are handled. Again, not more than 20 people.
Okay. And you get to hang out with 5 people.
Exactly.
And that's the great part. And I know your first trip to Portugal was a massive success. We kind of alluded to this earlier, where 14 of you went on the trip, and now there were, I think you said 4 or 5, a handful of people had never been to a Phi event, including a local meetup. And
I couldn't believe it. I was
remarkable.
like, wait, you've never even been to a local meetup and you flew across the ocean to come hang out with us? What an honor. I felt honored that they joined us. But yeah, there were 4 that they'd never met a Phi person in real life. They just listened to the podcast, read the books, came along and absolutely experienced the Phi magic that I talked about.
Yeah.
Like, they now have gone home and signed up for their local ChooseFI groups. And interestingly enough, I'm going to Camp Phi Rocky Mountain 1.5. And of the 14 that we had in Portugal, 7 of us so far have signed up for that one. I'm sure there's going to be more.
Ooh.
There's a lot of FOMO going on in this group. Everybody wants to have a little mini reunion, and then they hear about how great it is. Like, oh, I want to go. I want to go.
That's so cool.
It's going to be fun.
That is so cool. Yeah. And that's really what you're talking about with this Phi magic, and what a lot of us have seen with our ChooseFI local groups and all these events. And yeah, it's just cool to see you just create something that obviously people are clamoring for. And maybe they didn't even realize they were clamoring for.
I was so scared.
Yeah.
There were so many sleepless nights when I decided to kind of pull the trigger and actually launch this thing, because you don't know what can go wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't even think of, I planned it to death, right? I mean, I literally researched everything so much. So I knew that if anything happened, it was going to be outside of my control. And there were a few things, and everybody was cool. And that's the great thing about these people too, is everybody's very adaptable and chill. And I don't know if you realize this, we were there when they had the huge blackout in Western Europe that took down all of Spain and Portugal.
Oh my goodness. I didn't. Okay. Good times.
That was wild.
Wow, that's crazy.
Can I just share a couple of tips I learned from that? Because I think I think a lot of us in this community are travelers, and I just want to share some things that I learned. Okay. I think a lot of us are hesitant to pull out euros when we're in Europe because you don't want to pay the fees. Don't do that. Get euros or whatever money in whatever place you're in, because when the power goes out, the first thing that happens, credit card machines aren't working.
Sure.
Assuming even a place is open, the credit card machine's not going to work. They're going to want cash. Well, guess what? You can't get cash because the ATM machines are down too, right? So get the euros. And honestly, if you're worried about fees, it's not a big deal if you get you can get a Fidelity debit card or a Schwab debit card, and there are no fees. They will refund all the ATM fees. That's what I do. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I have the Schwab account, and it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So have cash. Also, maybe stock snacks, because one of the issues we ran into very quickly is that any prepared foods in any of the restaurant type places was gone quick. And then, of course, they can't use your kitchen. They can't cook anything. So it was like, went to this one place, so there's a long line. We're like, oh, we can get food there. We wait through this long line. We get up front. They're like, do you want this piece of bread or this piece of bread? Like, that's all they had.
Wow.
So have maybe some snacks. Okay. We got together pretty quickly, and I was just checking on everyone. And I was like, okay, who needs money? Who needs food? So we were able to pool resources if need be. So that was good. Battery backups. I think a lot of us now have packs that we travel with, but if you don't, make sure you do, maybe even 2, because by that evening, everybody's phones was dead. And then the last thing, and this is one that I didn't do, which I will always do now, is know where the nearest American embassy is where you are. Because if this outage would have lasted, we would have been kind of stranded. And that's probably the only way I would have known to potentially get help or get home.
Yeah.
So I will always have that resource now, know where that is in writing, not again, your phone,
right, if your
the
phone's
internet's going to become spotty. Don't have it in an email on your phone, like have that printed out on a piece of paper.
Wow. Okay. Well, that is great advice. Obviously, we're not all going to get hit with that kind of blackout, but it's important. All those things are very applicable to people just traveling generally.
It was so scary because I didn't know how long it was going to last. We were hearing these rumors that Putin had dropped a bomb. We heard rumors that it was a cyber attack. We were hearing from the locals it was going to be at least 3 days. We were supposed to go to Lisbon the next day. We were in Porto when this happened. I'm like, do we even go? Like, what happens if we get there and we can't get into our hotel? Is our transportation even going to be able to take us because they probably can't get gas because the pumps, when their power's out?
Yeah.
It was very unsettling because whether I was officially responsible for these 14 people or not, I certainly felt like I was. We were very fortunate that the power came back on late that night. It was out for about 12 hours, but there were certainly some suggestions that it might not have been.
Yeah.
So thank goodness it wasn't worse than that.
Yeah. Thank goodness indeed. Wow. So, okay. That's great advice. And right. If you are listening to this, so we've said the website is F-I, friends, plural. So FIfriendstravel.com.
Yep.
For me, I'm on your newsletter, Kristen, you know this. So I've subscribed. I think regardless of whether you're going to go on one of the trips that are happening imminently, I love Kristen's emails. It keeps me updated on what's going on. So you can't miss it. It's right smack in the middle of the homepage. So big subscribe. She'll send out updates with the newest trips and some trip reports from prior trips, which is really neat. A little bit of FOMO.
And I won't spam you. I don't send emails that often.
No, you don't spam at all.
Not more than one a week.
Yeah, no, you're great. And yeah, like you said, our understanding of when we're recording this is the day after this goes live, that the Turkey trip will be coming on the website.
Yep.
And there are limited numbers. We said about 20 is the number. So if that interests you, you definitely want to get on it ASAP. But the nice thing is, seems like you're going to have a good handful of these trips, or 3 to 5 trips a year. So again, the best way is just subscribe to the newsletter and you'll be updated.
That is absolutely the best way. I did have people after Morocco sold out. They're like, well, I didn't know. I'm like, well, you weren't subscribed.
Yeah, get on the newsletter.
Definitely subscribe so you know when I launch. I did recently start a Fi Friends Travel Instagram and Facebook page too, if you want to follow along.
Cool.
But to know when the trips are launching, you definitely want to be on that email list.
Yep. So FI friends, plural, FIfriendstravel.com. So that is absolutely awesome. Kristen, this
one more.
Yeah.
One more point. Right now I'm doing 3 a year. I think once I stop working, I'll probably do maybe 4 or 5, but right now it's 3. The other one in 2026 is going to be an African safari to Tanzania. I'm going to launch that. I'm aiming for mid-August. So just heads up on that one. There's already been a lot of chatter about that one. A lot of people are excited. We'll go in early October 2026, but it's going to get launched this August. So if you've ever wanted to do that, keep an eye out.
Ooh, I've wanted to do that. I might keep an eye out. No promises, but yeah, I like the sound of that. That is awesome.
We're going to go to the Serengeti and I'm going to butcher how you say this. Maybe you know what it is. The caldera, the big crater there. Ngorongoro, I don't know. Okay. The big crater that starts with an N that has a whole lot of words, a whole lot of letters.
Okay.
Ngorongoro.
Yeah, I'm not even going to attempt. I'm going to let you be the one to pronounce it. Oh man, Kristen, you're the best. I love hanging out with you. Your energy is infectious. So really, just loved hearing your story. Love seeing what you've been doing with the St. Louis group, and this Fi Friends Travel thing is awesome. So thank you for the part that
it's a dream.
Played. Yeah.
I'm living my dream, man.
I believe it. I can see it. And I'm just so happy for you. So thank you for what you've done for the community. A huge congrats to you and your husband for everything that has gone so well in your lives. This is really, really remarkable.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. This has been a really good one. FiFriendsTravel.com. Check it out and really hear that. The Fi magic, right? That's what Fi is, magic in so many ways. The concept is just fundamental truth. It's the way to live a better life. Finding these people in your real life, in your local area, all across the world, it makes a difference. It makes your life better. I've been to so many of these live events, and I treasure each and every one of them. They massively move the needle in terms of life satisfaction. And it's just cool to see them popping up. And it's really amazing to see something like this, where you can just go on these fun trips with other Fi people. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm just thrilled to see the success. So as always, thanks for being part of the community. And until next time, thanks for listening to ChooseFI.